What is the creepiest missing person case you know about? In 2014, two Dutch students, Kremers and Lisanne Froon, set out for what was supposed to be a simple day hike near Boquete in the highlands of Panama. It was the rainy season, but the trail was popular, and they planned to be back before nightfall. They never returned. At first, it seemed like a straightforward case of hikers losing their way in dense jungle. But what was found later turned the disappearance into something far more unsettling. Weeks after they vanished, a backpack surfaced along a riverbank downstream. Inside were their phones and a camera, dry, undamaged, as if carefully placed. The camera held cheerful photos of the two friends on the trail, smiling in bright daylight. The timestamps showed those images were taken roughly an hour before their phones began repeatedly attempting emergency calls. Then came the stranger discovery. In the middle of the night, between 1 o'clock and 4 a.m., more than a week after they disappeared, nearly 90 photos were taken in complete darkness. Most were disorienting, flashes illuminating a rocky cliff face, tangled bushes, scattered belongings arranged into makeshift markers. One image showed what appeared to be a crude signal made from scraps of paper. Another captured the back of a head, partially lit by the camera's harsh flash. There were no clear signs of who was taking the photos or why. Months later, fragments of their remains were found scattered in the wilderness, a few bones, and a hiking boot with part of a foot still inside. Forensic investigations could not conclusively determine what had happened. Did they wander off the trail and suffer a tragic accident? Were they swept away by swollen river rapids? Or did something, or someone, intervene? Officially, the case leans toward a tragic accident in unforgiving terrain. But the unanswered questions, the nighttime photographs, and the eerie silence between those final emergency calls continue to unsettle anyone who looks into it. It's the not knowing that lingers. A boy from my mom's circle of friends has been missing since November. He's only 13, and he has epilepsy. That alone makes it terrifying. What makes it worse is that his mother's accounts of what happened have shifted over time. Small inconsistencies, details that don't quite line up. It hits differently when it's not a headline or a documentary, but someone connected to your own life. This isn't some survival story where a kid adapts and thrives in the wilderness. This isn't Hatchet. There's no believable scenario where he's been out there on his own all this time. The possibilities narrow in a way that feels suffocating. He's either gone for good or someone is hiding the truth. I never expected so many people to react when I first shared this. But I want to be clear about something. Don't turn this into a witch hunt. People in my city have been targeting his mom since the day he disappeared. If she's innocent, she's already living through the worst nightmare imaginable. Her child is missing, and the world has decided she's responsible. And if she were guilty, don't you think investigators would have uncovered something concrete by now? Playing detective online doesn't help. It just creates more damage. If there's any energy to spend, it should go toward finding answers, not tearing someone apart on suspicion alone. Later, there was an update. Bones were discovered, and authorities say they are almost certainly his. It feels like the search may be over. The timing of it all, how suddenly it happened, just makes the whole thing feel even heavier. A few years ago, the teenage daughter of one of my mom's friends disappeared. The search took over everything. Flyers on telephone poles, candlelight vigils, news vans parked along quiet suburban streets. At one point, a local TV crew interviewed a boy from her class. He said they were close friends. On camera, he looked shattered, voice trembling, eyes red, saying he just wanted her to be found safe. While they were filming, a producer stepped in with breaking information. Searchers had just discovered a piece of her remains. The change in him was immediate. The color drained from his face. He stopped speaking mid-sentence, swayed slightly, then muttered something about needing air. He walked out of frame and sat down hard on the curb, staring at nothing. At the time, everyone thought it was shock, grief, horror. Later, investigators revealed he had been the one responsible for her death. Looking back, that interview feels different. This case always stuck with me because of how small details ended up solving something horrific. A young woman was working alone at a gas station late at night when a man attacked her and dragged her outside. The entire thing was caught on the station's security cameras, but the footage was grainy and distorted. You could see the struggle, see him pull her away, but you couldn't clearly make out his face. With no usable image, investigators focused on what they could see. The man was wearing a distinctive coat. Police released a description to the public, hoping someone would recognize it. Eventually, a tip came in. Someone said their workplace janitor wore a coat just like that all the time. Detectives searched his home repeatedly. At first, they found nothing concrete. Then, in the backyard, they discovered a single burned tooth. On its own, it might not have meant much. But the victim had recently attended a dental conference and received a brand new type of filling, so new that only a couple of people in the world had it at the time. That unique dental work turned the tooth into undeniable evidence. It tied the remains directly to her. There was another near miss during the investigation, too. A witness had spotted a suspicious vehicle near a park and managed to catch part of the license plate number. But when police ran it, nothing matched. The car connected to the suspect had been registered under the wrong color, so it slipped through their initial search. In the end, it wasn't the blurry footage that caught him. It was a coat someone recognized, a tiny fragment of a tooth, and a piece of cutting-edge dental work. I originally heard about it on an episode of Forensic Files, and considering the limitations of forensic technology at the time, it's wild how they managed to piece it together. In the early morning hours of August 9th, 2013, Brandon Lawson called 911 from a remote stretch of highway near Bronte. It was around 2 a.m. His truck had run out of gas, and he'd left it on the side of the road. The 911 recording is strained and difficult to decipher, wind rushing across the receiver, his voice urgent and uneven. He sounds frightened, speaking rapidly about running into something, about people in a field. At one point, it seems like he says he's being chased through the woods. Then the call cuts off. That was the last confirmed contact from him through emergency services. His brother later said Brandon called him shortly afterward, but whatever was said in that conversation has never led to clear answers. Over the years, people have dissected the 911 audio frame by frame. Some claim that when the recording is cleaned up, it sounds like gunshots echoing faintly in the background. Others say that around the 103 mark, you can barely make out a whispered "help me." But the audio is ambiguous, open to interpretation, shaped by static and suggestion. For years, he simply vanished into the darkness of rural Texas, leaving behind an abandoned truck, a frantic call, and a recording that continues to haunt those who listen to it. My sister. She disappeared when she was still in high school. Little by little, she'd started falling in with a rough crowd. Parties, drugs, people my parents didn't trust. Then one day, she was just gone. No note. No call. Nothing. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. 2 full years passed without a word. Every unknown number made my mom jump. Every rumor felt like it might be the one that led us to her. But there was only silence. Then one afternoon, everything changed. My mom was out running errands when she spotted a truck she recognized instantly, the truck belonging to the guy my sister had been seeing right before she vanished. It was parked outside a motel. By coincidence, and maybe a bit of luck, we have a few police officers in the family. They went to check it out. And there she was, alive, staying with him. The guy turned out to be wanted on other charges and was arrested. My sister, instead of jail, got help. She went to rehab. It wasn't easy and it wasn't quick, but she fought her way back. Today, she's been clean for well over a decade. She graduated from college. She has 2 beautiful kids and a husband who truly loves her. For a long time, we didn't know if we'd ever see her again. Now she's proof that even when someone disappears into the worst parts of life, it doesn't mean the story is over. This case always stayed with me because of how tragic and infuriating it became. In 2009, Susan Powell disappeared from her home in West Valley City. Her husband, Josh Powell, told police he had taken their 2 young sons on a spontaneous camping trip in the middle of the night. In December, in Utah, he said they left around midnight and returned the next day, at which point Susan was gone. From the beginning, the story raised alarms. Her purse, phone, and personal belongings were still inside the house. She hadn't contacted her family, which was completely out of character. Friends later revealed that Susan had confided in them. If anything ever happened to her, she believed her husband would be responsible. Their marriage had been strained, and there were allegations of controlling and abusive behavior. When police arrived at the home, they noticed a large wet spot on the carpet with a fan positioned to dry it. Josh claimed he'd spilled something and was trying to air it out. Investigators weren't convinced. Then there were the boys. One of them reportedly told a social worker that they had gone camping and that their mom wasn't with them. Another chilling statement surfaced, that they wouldn't see their mother again. Despite years of investigation, searches, and mounting suspicion, no charges were ever filed in Susan's disappearance. Meanwhile, disturbing information emerged about Josh's father, who became entangled in a separate child pornography investigation, further deepening the darkness surrounding the family. In 2012, after Josh had moved with the boys to Graham, the case ended in horror. During a supervised visitation at his home, he attacked his sons and then deliberately set the house on fire, killing all 3 of them in the explosion. Susan has never been found. No body. No definitive answers. No trial. It's a case that leaves you with a hollow feeling, because even though so much seemed to point in one direction, there was never the closure her family deserved. Hatchet.There. This case isn't eerie in a supernatural way. It's unsettling because, by all accounts, nothing about her life suggested danger. February 14th, 2000, Valentine's Day, and her parents' wedding anniversary. Asha was 9 years old. She lived in Shelby with a close, protective family. There was no internet in the house, no cell phones. Her world was small and structured: school, church, relatives, home. The adults around her were careful. The people she interacted with weren't strangers. And yet, sometime in the early hours between February 13th and 14th, Asha got out of bed. She dressed herself. She packed a backpack, carefully, deliberately, and left the house. It was a cold, stormy night. Heavy rain. Wind. The kind of weather that would send most adults back under the covers. Asha was known to be afraid of storms and dogs. She was shy, obedient, not the type to break rules. At 2:30 a.m., her father checked on the children. Both were asleep in their beds. By around 3:15 a.m., drivers on Highway 18 reported seeing a small figure walking along the road, over a mile from her home. One motorist turned around, concerned. When headlights swept toward her, the child ran off the road and into the woods. If that was Asha, it's the last confirmed sighting. Later, in a shed near where she was seen running, searchers found candy wrappers, markers, and a hair bow, items identified as hers. Then, a year later, construction workers uncovered her backpack, buried and wrapped carefully in plastic bags. No trace of her has been found since. Theories circle endlessly. Some believe she was lured out, perhaps with the promise of a surprise for her parents' anniversary. She packed family photos and a change of clothes, including something slightly dressier. If someone persuaded her to leave, it likely had to be someone familiar, someone who wouldn't set off alarms, someone who could convince a rule-following child that keeping a secret was the right thing to do. But if that's true, why was she walking alone along a highway in the rain? Did she get scared and try to get away? Was she meeting someone and something went wrong? Another theory points to a book she had recently read in school, The Whipping Boy, about boys who run away on an adventure. But that explanation struggles against the reality of that night, dark, cold, stormy, and against everything known about her fears. The case lingers because it defies expectation. There was no obvious vulnerability, no clear access point, no digital trail. Police eventually ruled out her parents. And yet, the facts don't settle into a neat explanation. A careful little girl. A packed bag. A stormy highway before dawn. It feels like something that shouldn't have been possible, and that's what makes it so hard to let go. For a while, my daughter had a routine. Every day after school, she would walk partway home and stop at the same spot to wait. Either my wife or I would pick her up there. It seemed harmless at first, but something about it bothered me. The predictability. The fact that anyone watching could figure it out in a matter of days. I pushed back. I told them it wasn't safe for her to wait in the same place like that. She needed to either stay on school grounds or walk straight home, no fixed stopping point. We argued about it, but eventually they agreed. A couple of days later, it happened. A car was parked across the street from her usual waiting spot. Two older teenage boys were inside, doors open, music playing. When my daughter reached the area, one of them suddenly jumped out and started sprinting toward her. She ran. He chased her for about a block before giving up and heading back to the car. When she told me, I tried to downplay it. I figured it was just a couple of immature teenagers trying to scare a younger kid. Stupid. Thoughtless. Cruel, maybe, but not calculated. Then she added one detail I can't forget. The moment the one boy started running at her, the other one turned the music up, loud. Blasting. That's when my blood ran cold. It wasn't random. It wasn't spur-of-the-moment teasing. Someone had noticed her routine. Someone had timed it. And someone had thought ahead far enough to try to drown out the sound of whatever might have happened next. That realization changed everything. The Scholl's family from Drage vanished under mysterious circumstances in July 2015. Husband Marco, 41, his wife Sylvia, 43, and their 12-year-old daughter Miriam disappeared from their home on the 22nd. A week later, Marco's body was discovered in the Elbe River, his legs bound to a concrete block with a rope. Sylvia and Miriam, however, have never been found. Their house was completely emptied of personal belongings, and it's now set to be sold, with the proceeds held in a secure account until authorities determine who is legally entitled to inherit. Under German law, Sylvia cannot be declared dead until at least 8 years after her disappearance, and Miriam cannot be pronounced dead until she would have turned 25. Speculation about what happened runs deep. Some believe Marco killed his wife and daughter before taking his own life. Others hold out hope that Sylvia and Miriam may still be alive. The truth, for now, remains a haunting mystery, and it's possible we may never know what really happened. One of the most infamous cases of child disappearances goes back over 30 years. In 1980, baby Azaria Chamberlain vanished while her family was camping at Uluru. Her mother claimed that a dingo had taken the baby. For decades, the case sparked intense media coverage, public outrage, and legal battles. 32 years later, a coroner finally ruled that Azaria's disappearance was indeed caused by a dingo. Closer to home, in Portland, Oregon, young Kieran Horman disappeared under similarly chilling circumstances. He was last seen when his stepmother dropped him off at school one morning, and he has never been found. The case dominated local news, led to extensive searches, and generated suspicion and accusations aimed at the stepmother, but so far, no charges have been filed. Both cases remain etched in public memory, haunting examples of how quickly a routine day can turn into a lifelong mystery. My great-aunt, Kimberly and Langwell, disappeared in Beaumont back in July 1999. She went out one night to Eckerd's Pharmacy and never came back. Her car and most of her belongings were left behind, except for her purse and car keys. Since that night, no one has seen her. We've been living with this uncertainty for over 2 decades. If anyone has any information, please contact your local police. Our family just wants closure. To the person responsible, if you see this, please just tell us where she is. You took her from us, and all we want is to know she's safe, or at least to have answers. Aunt Kim, if somehow you're out there, please let us know you're okay. We love you and miss you more than words can say. Norman's eldest granddaughter. A girl from my town, around my age, disappeared after spending time with friends. The investigation quickly focused on someone she knew, a friend. Her body was never recovered, but investigators did find her DNA in the trunk of his car. What makes this case especially unsettling to me is personal. She and I share the same age and background, and the person who harmed her was someone she trusted, someone she felt safe being alone with at night. The thought that familiarity can be this dangerous is what really sticks with me. A few years ago, 2 girls went missing in a town not far from where I live, Delphi. They were taking a walk across a railroad bridge, filming Snapchat videos as they went. As they reached the middle of the bridge, they noticed a man following them. They managed to capture him on video, and even in the clip, it's clear he had ill intentions. Shortly after taking the video, the girls disappeared. Their bodies were later found, but the person responsible has never been caught. It's a chilling case because they were just kids, doing something ordinary, and someone they encountered turned it into a nightmare. The fact that the killer is still at large makes it all the more haunting. There's a book from 1983 called Stranger Than Science by Stranger Than Science. I read it years ago, but one story still sticks with me. It's about a man who vanished while walking across his own front yard. Weeks after he disappeared, some of his family claimed they could faintly hear him calling for help, though no one could locate him. Despite the eerie sounds and the search, he was never found. The thought of someone just fading away like that, and the possibility that his calls might have been real, makes the story unsettling even decades later. One of the more notorious disappearances is that of Henry McCabe. What makes it particularly unsettling isn't just that he vanished, it's the voicemail he left behind. The message was filled with strange, disturbing noises. People have speculated wildly about what they could be. Some think it sounds like waterboarding, others suggest a taser or other forms of torture. No one can say for sure. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance are just as strange. His family apparently gave misleading information to the police at times, and the friends he was last seen with made a series of bad decisions that only complicated the investigation. The FBI even got involved, which added another layer of mystery. Over time, recordings of that voicemail circulated online, but the full audio has since vanished. Only fragments remain, leaving the sounds, whatever they were, open to endless speculation. For me, that is the creepiest part, a message left in desperation, full of unidentifiable noises from someone who disappeared without a trace. Not creepy in a supernatural way, but absolutely baffling. The podcast Someone Knows Something has 2 seasons dedicated to missing persons cases in Ontario. The first season focuses on a 5-year-old boy who vanished while fishing with his father and siblings back in the 1970s. The second season covers a 29-year-old woman who disappeared in January 1998. Both cases remain unsolved. The host digs into a wide range of theories and interviews people connected to the cases, trying to piece together what might have happened. The episodes are gripping and haunting because in both situations, ordinary lives were upended, and the truth is still out there, waiting to be discovered. The disappearance of Maura Murray remains one of the most baffling and unsettling cases in recent memory. There are countless strange and disturbing details surrounding her vanishing, yet none have led investigators to her whereabouts. Maura was last seen after a car accident in New Hampshire. A witness arrived to check on the crash, called for help, and when they returned moments later, she was gone, vanishing into the snow with no footprints or tracks behind her. That sudden, unexplained disappearance in the middle of a snowy road is what continues to haunt people who follow the case. Some speculation has also surrounded her father, though it's worth noting that much of this comes from a single blogger, and the credibility of those claims is uncertain. Regardless, the mystery of Maura Murray's disappearance, an ordinary college student disappearing without a trace, remains deeply unsettling. There's a well-known case from Japan where a mother told her family she was going to meet an old classmate, left the house, leaving her 18-month-old child behind, and never returned. What made the story especially eerie was a detail from a TV interview with her husband. In the background, a note was visible on the wall. "Don't believe anything Yoko says." Yoko was the missing woman's sister, and the memo added a layer of strange tension and suspicion to an already mysterious disappearance. I read this story a long time ago, so the details are fuzzy, but it stuck with me. It supposedly happened in the 18th or 19th century. A group of people was traveling through a forest together. One man, about 30 yards ahead of the others, was joking around and then suddenly ran even further ahead. As the rest of the group rounded a bend, they saw him trip over a log. And then he was gone. All witnesses said they saw him fall. There was no hole, no hidden crevice, just a well-trodden path and solid ground except for the fallen log. The stragglers were no more than 10 meters behind him. It was a clear day, and yet the man simply vanished. He was never seen again. From what I read, he had no debts, no enemies, and the people he was with were friends. Nothing suspicious was suspected. He just tripped and disappeared as if the earth swallowed him. I don't know how true the story is, but the thought of someone vanishing like that, in plain sight, has always haunted me. Christopher Kris disappeared in 1989 at the age of 17, and the circumstances remain baffling. On the day he vanished, his family received a letter in the mail from Duluth, Minnesota. In it, he said he couldn't explain why he was doing what he was doing. Hours later, his van was discovered at a rest stop, far from home, with a note indicating it belonged to him. Beyond that, he vanished without a trace. Reports suggest he had been struggling in the weeks before his disappearance and had withdrawn only $200 before leaving. The rest stop was near a heavily wooded area, and multiple searches of the surrounding land turned up nothing. Authorities believe he may have hitchhiked elsewhere. Speculation includes suicide, foul play, or that he simply chose to walk away and live off the grid. Some even wonder if he might still be alive somewhere, living a transient lifestyle. Regardless, the ease with which he disappeared, and left almost no clues, makes this case especially unsettling. Three lighthouse keepers vanished from a small, isolated island off the coast of Scotland, and no one has ever figured out what happened. When authorities arrived, they found two of the three raincoats missing, a meal left half-eaten, and a chair toppled to the ground. One of the keepers' diaries was recovered, describing a violent storm and noting that the other two men had been acting strangely. But here's the unsettling part. No storm had occurred in that region at the time, despite what the diary claimed. All three men were never seen again, leaving behind an eerie, unsolved mystery that has haunted the island for decades. There was a girl in my middle school class named Monique. She disappeared one day and was never heard from again. Shortly after her disappearance, her abusive stepfather left the country for several years before returning. This was in Oklahoma, where he had connections in the local Good Old Boy network. Despite the circumstances, he was never charged, and the police didn't even investigate. Her sister is still fighting to uncover the truth decades later. This happened around 1989 or the early 90s. I can't remember the exact year. Monique was kind, sweet, and strikingly pretty. She was one of the few people who ever talked to me during that time, and I missed her terribly. There's a darkness over that place, born from generations of casual cruelty and a disregard for human life, and her disappearance is a haunting example of it. The disappearance of Fred Valentik remains one of aviation's strangest mysteries. He was a pilot who took off from a Melbourne airport on a routine training flight over the Bass Strait, bound for King Island, but he never arrived. What makes the case so eerie is his final radio transmission. Valentik reported a strange craft following him, and the last thing heard over the airwaves was a metallic scraping noise. Some experts have suggested he became disoriented, possibly flying upside down and mistaking the lights from his own Cessna reflecting off the water for another aircraft. However, his plane could only sustain inverted flight for a few seconds before stalling, making that explanation difficult to fully accept. To this day, neither Fred Valentik nor his aircraft has ever been found, leaving the mystery unresolved and chilling to anyone who studies it. In India, we use gas cylinders for cooking, and they need to be refilled roughly every 3 weeks. The refill company sends trucks even to remote areas. One time, my aunt missed the truck, so she sent my cousin, he was 17 at the time, about 10 kilometers into town on his bike to get a refill. He left that day and never came back. There was no evidence, no clues, nothing at all. The police eventually called off the search after a year, and the family stopped looking after about 5 years. He simply vanished that day. It's been almost 20 years now, and my aunt is still waiting, hoping he will return. Oh boy, this is a story I don't forget. When I was very young, I wandered away from our townhouse in southeastern Michigan. The area was known for gang activity, but kidnappings were rare, except that, at the time, there had been a string of them for about a month. I was just a 4-year-old, going into the woods to play with sticks and do whatever silly things kids do. That's when I saw a man and a teenage girl approaching one of my neighbor's kids, a 3-year-old. They were offering him free toys. Luckily, he ran inside and told his parents, who called the police. Frustrated, the pair went into the woods, and that's when they spotted me. They didn't try to trick me, they chased me. Terrified, I scrambled up a tree and stayed there for at least 10 hours. The police eventually found me after the couple had been arrested. It's one of those memories that sticks with you, the fear, the isolation, and the sheer luck of getting away. My second cousin disappeared during a storm at sea while island hopping in a small craft in far north Queensland. His father spent 3 years searching the islands, looking for any trace of him. Eventually, they found him, not stranded or cast away, but living with a local woman as his wife on a small island near Papua New Guinea. He had a radio and maintained contact with Australia. Apparently, he had told everyone not to worry before he set out. He returned to the mainland shortly afterward and became a home economics teacher at a Christian Brotherhood school. Later on, he even ended up in a court case over the right to wear a lap skirt at work. So, that's Queensland for you. This might get buried, but my grandfather has been searching for his sister since 1956. She left one day, just before her 18th birthday, and never made contact with the family again. At one point, he went to identify a Jane Doe. He doesn't talk about it much, but since he kept searching afterward, it's likely she wasn't his sister. Over the years, he's gotten close a few times, but verifying records from so long ago has been difficult. Even after all these decades, he hasn't given up hope. Darvis Lee Jr. I consider this a missing person case because, aside from his jawbone, nothing else of him was ever found. It's especially unsettling to me because I knew him fairly well. He was my half-sister's half-brother, not technically related to me, but we interacted often. Darvis had an unusually rough life. He had been kidnapped as a child and, later as an adult, had fallen into a mine and needed search and rescue. He just seemed to have an extraordinary streak of bad luck. Knowing all of that, his disappearance feels even more haunting. When I was in 5th grade, I was at a friend's house. Behind her yard was a lake, and we liked to hang out near the water where it felt quiet and a little hidden from the world. That's where 2 high school-age guys walked up on us. One of them looked at us and said, "Oh, okay, we'll leave." They turned away. But even after they were gone, both of us felt it, that tight, sick feeling in your stomach when something isn't right. We decided to head back to her house and stayed inside for about 15 minutes. Eventually, we convinced ourselves we were being dramatic. We went back out. They were there again. This time they asked if we wanted to sit with them. We said no and started walking across the dam that stretched along the lake. About 50 feet in, I heard something behind us. I glanced over my shoulder. They were following us. I told my friend. She didn't believe me until she looked herself. And then they started running. We ran too. Adrenaline hit so hard it felt like my chest would burst. At the end of the dam, there was a dry waterfall area. I looked back again and saw one of them following directly behind us while the other tried to angle off, cutting us off before we could reach the houses. That's the part that still makes me shake. It wasn't random. They were coordinating. We ran harder than I ever had in my life. Somehow, by luck, by distance, by pure panic, we managed to outrun them. When we finally reached her dad's house, we slammed the door and didn't leave again for the rest of the day. I don't know what would have happened if they had cornered us. My mind fills in the worst possibilities. It's been 8 or 9 years, and it still sits with me. I sometimes wonder if it would have helped to tell our parents right away, or to know who they were, or to know, definitively, what their plan was. But it's the not knowing that lingers, the fact that we were just 2 kids by a lake, and for a few terrifying minutes, something very real was closing in on us.